Hey guys, it's Laura Davils here, and I'm coming to you on this deliciously rainy day for another book review. This one is Divine Magic by Patrick Dunn. If you will remember, I did a review of his book, Postmodern Magic. This one is fantastic. So the little subheading is Contemporary and Ancient Techniques of Thaumaturgy. So basically there's the idea that there's two different kinds of magic. There's the magic for yourself and your soul and to better yourself. And then there's, your money spells and your things like that. So this book focuses on your relationship to the gods. It has a more pagan mindset to it in every way that it is written. And I like that. He does have a Greco-Roman focus in this book, which, while I'm kind of bored of Greece and Rome from an American perspective, because that's really all we're taught when it comes to mythology, it's interesting whenever he talks about it, because he talks about the religious perspective of it. He talks about the pagan ritual practices, wherein in school and stuff, you're only taught the whitewashed, or I should say Christian washed, the Christian washed version of it, where, they didn't really do anything. What sacrifices? Anyway, so he talks about that. And he does say repeatedly that he does not condone animal sacrifice, but that if you are a farmer or a hunter and trapper who already hunts their own game and food, then by all means incorporate a religious practice into that. But if you do not do those things and you do not know how to prepare a sacrificial animal for cooking, maybe you shouldn't be cutting any throats. And he says it very politely and eloquently anytime the subject pops up. And I like that, because people get a bad rap for being pagan. It's like, we don't sacrifice goats. In fact, bread sacrifices were far more ancient. Yes. Anywho, so he talks about the different philosophies, such as Platonism, Middle Platonism, Neoplatonism. Sorry, woof. Kicked my table. Anyway, he talks about the differences between all of that, because I had heard of Platonism and Neoplatonism, but I didn't really know what exactly people were referring to. And now I do. He talks about the whole thing in the preface. And in chapter 1, he kind of talks about the different parts of the soul and whatnot. And from a Greek perspective is very interesting. Of course, if you're coming from another perspective, like let's say the Norse perspective, you're going to believe that there are 9 parts of the soul, as opposed to there being 3, right? So it really depends on your practice. And his exercises are not so complicated. They're thought-provoking, but they're not overly complicated, so you can easily substitute things. But he is consistent throughout in using Greco-Roman terminology, which I do actually like, because he will say, like, there's one word for, it's called a cockodaemon. This is the kind of like goetic entities. And he mentions that they are sometimes called goetic entities as well. But I now have an entire vocabulary of things that I didn't have a vocabulary before. And I also have a consistent vocabulary for things that I didn't know before. So it's those little things that I really, really like. His style is super down to earth. And in every chapter just about, you have a dialogue between a teacher and a student. So Philonike is the teacher and Euthemios is the student. And we're all like Euthemios, right? And Philonike is the one that's teaching us a lesson. And the dialogue makes it, at least for me, more accessible, and I really like that, because at the end of the dialogue, when Euthemios has the aha moment, we have the aha moment with them, right? And they poke fun. They're very funny. And it's something like, you have an oven or something like that. Like, I thought we were ancient Greeks. She was like, I don't know what we are. So they're kind of breaking the fourth wall too and making it funny. And that is something that I like about Patrick Dunn. One of my biggest markers of intelligence is a sense of humor. Not sarcasm, not mean, sarcastic humor. Like funny, goofy, silly humor, not taking yourself too seriously. That to me feels like a marker of intelligence and someone who's comfortable with the content that they're writing about, right? They're not trying to take themselves too seriously. Let's go through the table of contents real fast, because I love to give you guys a table of contents. Make sure it's all the way in. There we go. Yes. And so as you can see, he does have a chapter on thaumaturgy towards the end. And he talks about the importance of thaumaturgy as well as theurgy. So unlike other theurgical, I guess you'd say, books, where it's like, oh, you know, it's so morally superior, you can't do money spells. He's like, how are you going to have the time and the resources and the energy to pay your bills, do everything you need to do to survive, and then also have time for your relationship with your gods? How are you going to do that? Money spells. If you need money spells, do money spells, because not all of us are lucky enough to have all of that taken care of and have the time, right? I consider myself very lucky that I have the time to read all these books and do this myself. So I totally understand it. I do money. Oh my God. 90% of the spells I do are money spells, and it's the same damn spell. It's the same damn spell. Anyway, and it's a pretty simple candle spell, and it works. You don't need the theatrics. I like his chapter called Demonology, because that's just spirits. He's just talking about all kinds of different spirits. He even talks about the HGA, the Holy Guardian Angel. You know, that's the entity that is tied to you for life, that protects you, and you can build a rapport, like an actual rapport with this entity, and get their actual help on things and actually speak with them. That is something that has been upheld in magical practices for thousands of years by all kinds of different names, but there is always an entity, whether someone refers to it as their patron deity or whether someone refers to it as their HGA. It is that entity that follows you and protects you. And he has a pretty nice little spell, or ritual, I should say, and it's a daily practice of building an altar to your HGA or entity that is attached to you, and just saying hello and giving it offerings and thanks for looking out for you until you feel like you've built up enough of a rapport. And then you do this really cool little ritual that is so much more simpler than the Abramelin stuff, right? Although the Abramelin stuff is super effective. I don't want to act like it's not, but it's intense. That's the word for it. The Abramelin way of reaching your HGA is incredibly intense. It's potent as well. The more intensity you put into something, the more intensity you get back. So it makes sense. He also talks about familiar spirits, which he calls paradros. And that's an assistant that you send to go do things for you. So little things that you wouldn't send your holy guardian angel, you know, to fetch you some cash. You wouldn't send them to go fetch you like, oh, this spell is missing an ingredient, or I need a certain book on this subject, but I don't know which one. Your HGA does not fetch things for you. Your fetches things for you. Your familiar spirit, your paradros, whatever you call them, right? Sorry for the fetch pun. I had to. Couldn't resist it. And he talks about land beings. He also talks about how there has been a lot of genocide on this planet, especially in the Americas, and how you should approach land beings with respect, but also don't approach them in pseudo Native American ripoffs, because that's not only disrespectful to Native Americans, but the land spirits probably won't like you impersonating their friends who have been murdered, right? So treat spirits like any other person, you know, with respect and politeness. Now, there is a very interesting chapter, chapter 3, Addresses to the Gods, where he talks about how statuettes and things are kind of like a phone number to a deity. The statuette is not the deity. The statuette is just the phone number, and it's the phone that you're talking to the deity through as a tool. And I just Love that metaphor, that comparison, whatever you want to call it. It's a very, very good one. And he also has very thoughtful things to say about paganism. If I can find the section that it is in, because I highlighted it because I loved it so much. Maybe that section is in chapter 2. We'll see. If I don't find it quickly enough, we will skip it. But basically he points out that paganism is more so about a philosophical statement of deities being closer to us, as opposed to, oh, God is so transcendent above us, we could never possibly, know God. We could never possibly find a representation on this imperfect world for the perfectly transcendent God. And I believe that there is a supreme cosmic force that is that transcendent God. But I also believe that there are gods that are closer to us. They're not transcendent. They're not perfect, right? And because they're not transcendent and perfect, we can have a closer connection with them. Not to say that you can't have a connection with the Supreme, but that's just like my way of understanding it. But he breaks it down as a philosophical statement of, my gods aren't perfect, and that's okay. And as a philosophy, I think it's very interesting, because it is a philosophy, but we're never told that it's a philosophy. We're told that that's stupid and wrong, and that's it. It's never, no one really thinks about it like that, but obviously Patrick Dunn does, and he is just so eloquent in everything that he says. Let's see. What else can I say? I've got 3 minutes. Yes, so whenever he's talking about the importance of thaumaturgy, because I just came across this infographic, he cites Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So these are the needs that you fulfill. Not everyone fulfills these needs, and he says that this is an imperfect system, but generally, cultures / societies and people fulfill these needs in a certain order, similar kind of to this one, right? So whenever you have food and water and a roof over your head, now you need to protect those things. Well, now that you have an abundance, there's safety in numbers. You also make friends with the people that you're around. That's society. And once you have a standing in society, right, and other people look at you a certain kind of way and you develop relationships with them, now you want to uphold those relationships with respect and dignity. You want to make sure that the people that you are dealing with respect you. You want to have dignity in what you do. Whereas before, we all fall on hard times. We might do jobs that we don't like. We might have to flip some burgers sometimes to make those ends meet. It doesn't give us much dignity, because in America, you're not treated with dignity when you're a service worker, right? As your needs get more and more met, right? You're like, I will never do that work again. I have this skilled trade now. I will do this now, and I will never ill-dignify myself by flipping burgers again. That sort of thing as well, because you now have options, right? And then once you have all of that, self-actualization, and with that comes spirituality. So self-actualization is knowing yourself, figuring out who you are, right? And above that, because Patrick Dunn says that there's actually kind of like another little pyramid at the top, like another little notch at the top. And that little notch at the top is your relationship with spirit or deity or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and I really, really like, yes. And he talks about, having a series of values, whatever those values are. Having a value system is very important. And he also talks about value systems in this chapter, because he's talking about thaumaturgy, the importance of thaumaturgy, and no, you're not a bad person because you asked the universe for money. I've literally had people come up to me, friends of mine, one particular friend who's like, well, if I ask for money, like, what do I have to give back in return? I'm like, you're asking for a favor. The universe can say no, or the universe can say, I see you working hard. I see what you've been through. Yeah, you need a break. Here you go. Right? Here, I'm going to send this person in to your workplace, and they're going to tip you phenomenally well so you can go get that book you want or that dress you want. It doesn't even have to be in a search for knowledge. It can be, I really want that pretty dress. I can't afford it. I cannot legitimize me buying that dress, but man, if I had the money, I would, because it would make me feel nice. That's valuable too. The universe doesn't just want you to get smart so that you can serve it. The universe wants you to feel nice too. That's that unconditional love that people talk about. Not to get too fifi over here with the witchy woo-woo, but you know, it's a fluffy concept, but it's true. I've literally been like, I just want a few $100s to just blow on some nice shit. I don't even need it. But man, that would be nice if you could help me out with that. And I still make good tips to where I can do those things. So it doesn't always have to be for a godly purpose or a morally superior purpose. And that's what I love that Patrick Dunn talks about in this whole book. He is so down to earth about your relationship with the gods being a personal thing. And again, Patrick Dunn, there's not an ounce of moral superiorness in any of his workings. And I find that to be rare, especially whenever you're talking about relationships with gods. In particular, people get a little preachy. Not Patrick Dunn, and I like that. So I'm not going to let this book review go too terribly long, so we're going to end it here. If you have read this book and you like this book, please let's have a conversation down below. If you like this video, please hit like. And if you like occult book reviews, please subscribe to my channel. I have several. I also do tarot unboxings whenever I get new tarot decks. Not too often, but take care of myself from time to time. And yes, until next time, happy dabbling and bye-bye.